Welcome to Trapped Live with comedy pioneer and innovator Phil Proctor of Fireside Theater. Also today, trumpet maestro and Legends radio personality Bob Merrill. All this wonderment brought to you by the hilarious new novel, The Adventures of Spike the Wonder Dog. Order today at orderspike.com. I'm your announcer and mission control director for today's show, Jeff Leibowitz, and now your favorite talk show host to be trapped live with, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Bill Boggs.
Well, Jeffrey, this is a big day. Fireside Theater's Phil Proctor with us. A wonderful, what a life this man is having. I just read his autobiography, and we have Legends radio personality Bob Merrill just took over Legends at between 8 and 10 at night. But first, how are you doing, Jeff? I've got a couple things in the news before the show really begins.
We're good. We are so far, the whole family is COVID-free, so I guess that's all you can ask for nowadays.
That's right. Although anybody who's watching the news knows you're in West Palm Beach, I'm in Palm Beach, Bob Merrill's in Palm Beach, and Benedict Canyon is the home of our friend Phil. Here we have a couple things in the news. One, giant toads are invading Florida. They're poisonous toads. Right. I love animals in the news, other than my dog, but this is the one I like the best. A python hunter caught a 17-foot python. This is Jimmy Kimmel's brother. Can you see it okay? Did I get that in there all right?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes. I hate snakes.
Yes, I know. All right, well, look, let me introduce our first guest. Hopefully he's here. Bob Merrill is the host, as you pointed out so succinctly in your dulcet tones, of Legends After Dark, between 8 and 10 at night. That's Legends Radio in Palm Beach County, and it streams all over the world, as Dick Robinson points out correctly. It's 100.3 Legends Radio. Bob is a trumpet player. He's a composer, an entertainer, wonderful storyteller. Right now, you can see a little bit of his home right there. He's a band leader, a pianist, and a recording artist, but he's not in the picture now. Welcome, everybody, Bob Merrill, host of Legends After Dark. Bob?
How are you? Can you see me? I can't see anything. I can't see me.
Are you?
We can see your home. I think your camera's backwards.
Yeah,
you're using the back camera instead of the front camera. No, we can see your arm. There you go. There we go. We're getting there. We got an arm. We got a shoulder.
Along now.
Right. All right. So, Bill, I know what you're
do. This is Fireside Theater. We started early. There he is. Right now, he's there. He's there in the corner.
There he is. There he is.
Can you hear what I'm saying?
Yes.
Bob, you look, by the way, you look like you're about 2 feet tall. Congratulations, Bob, on taking over Legends Radio between 8 and 10, Legends After Dark. What's your mission every night for the 2 hours that you're on?
We're trying to cheer up the universe. Don't you know that? That's the name of my album. We have radio waves that are going out to listeners, and there are aliens that are clearly eavesdropping. And if they are sophisticated enough to understand music, then we're actually reaching the entire universe. I believe that.
Well, we are reaching the entire universe. One of the reasons I wanted you on the show tonight is that you indicated to me that you're a Fireside Theater fan. I was going to put you on the show with Jack Jones later in the season, but Jack has been usurped by Phil Proctor here.
Well, let me just say, it's so weird when the minute you sent me the invitation to Trap Live and I saw Phil Proctor's name, I was literally sitting in my house waiting for the electrician or someone like him. I am not kidding. I used to love Nick Danger and Everything You Know Is Wrong. I had all the albums. I still do. It's incredible. I hope that we get to meet in the chat room or however this thing works.
Well, what's going to happen is we're going to talk to you, and then Phil's going to come on for a while, and then the third segment of the show, I'm going to bring you back in so you'll be able to listen to what we're talking about and come in with a couple of questions for Phil. I want a little bit about your background. In reading Phil's autobiography, I was so impressed about the seminal experience of his being at Yale University. And yes, and you went to Harvard. Is there anything that happened in your life at Harvard that you can really say led you to the career you've had? Because his life really goes back to meeting Mr. Bergman there at Yale and working with
Yes. I was in the Harvard band, and we used to do a lot of crazy hijinks. And one year we stole the Yale Bulldog at the Harvard-Yale game. Take that, Phil Proctor.
There's Phil. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I'm wearing my mask now so that we can appreciate the social media distancing. Okay. But I'm going to take it off now because it's getting a little too hot. Good.
There he
I
is.
have a feeling that we're safe in this environment. You stole the Yale Bulldog, did you? Well, dogs are going to be a topic of conversation. So go ahead. What?
You know, these college kids, they do kind of pranks, and the Harvard band was a real twisted group of individuals. And that was the prank one year. We gave the Bulldog back, but they were sweating it out because they didn't have their Bulldog for the Harvard-Yale game. It was crazy.
Well, you know, the Bulldog's name is George Tirebiter. Did you know that?
That name?
Yeah, that was the dog's, the mascot's name was George Tirebiter. Because he'd go chasing cars all the time. See? And that's why George Tirebiter became a Fireside Theater character.
I thought it was Porgy Tirebiter.
Well, the Tirebiter family.
The Tirebiter. I got that.
George Tirebiter has been running for, he was running for president in the initial George Papoon Not Insane campaign. Okay? And he's running independently this year. Hold on. Let me show you. Yeah. See, he's running independently under the Not Insane banner again this year. Vote Not Insane. And that's a challenge, let me tell you.
You're still working it. That's cool. I'll tell you what, Bob has a song, which I don't believe I've heard. You have a quarantine song, Bob?
It's a little quarantine song. It's based on the lyrics of a previous song, which will have a little trivia question. You've got to tell me the name. I know you're going to get it. But I wrote it in quarantine. It's called Sheltering in Place.
Sheltering in place from the virus, we're sheltering in place. Damn COVID virus, we're washing our hands with homemade Purell. Oh, what the hell, we're all gonna get it. Sheltering in place from Corona, binge watching all our shows from the sofa, and we can face this virus together, sheltering right here in our space. Hey pal, my insistence, please keep a healthy distance. Fauci says at least 6 feet or more. We will work from home, Zoom on a mobile phone. We'll eat takeout, order from the liquor store. Sheltering in place till it's over. Sheltering in place, let's hope it soon ends. We're washing our fingers, never touching face. Time hurries by so slow till the fever is gone. Sheltering in place with each other, we'll brighten up this space. I have you, love, and we can face this virus together. Sheltering in place, washing hands and face. Sheltering right here in our space.
And you wrote that because you had nothing better to do.
Absolutely.
Very
I'm
good.
looking at my Picasso of the guy playing the soprano sax or whatever he's doing. get inspiration. Now, what song was that to the tune of?
Dancing in the Dark. Is that what you mean?
Of course.
Dancing in the dark, I am drunk and I'm dancing with a hawk. I can't remember the lyrics.
At first I thought it was till the tune ends. We're dancing in the wonder of how we feel.
Why we're, yes. Bill,
Anyway,
of course.
here's what we're going to do. We're going to roll a commercial because, as you know, folks, this is the only show in the history of television. Even Fireside, I don't know if Firesign did this, sponsored by the host's book. That's right.
Wow.
Oh,
yeah, we funded to buy our records, of course.
It's the sponsor of this show. So we're going to take a break for
the sponsor. You have a sponsor.
We have a sponsor.
That means we get paid.
No, we're not an after signature. No, we're not a signature of after. Unlike when Bob was on, unlike when Phil was on Comedy Tonight and was well paid by the Boggs Baker after minimum. We'll take a break, come back and focus on Phil, and Bob will be back later in the show. So listen what we're doing, come up with a couple of questions, okay?
Alan Zweibel, original Saturday Night Live writer and Thurber Prize-winning author of The Other Showman, says, "The Adventures of Spike the Wonder Dog is so smart, witty, and inventive that I had to keep reminding myself that I didn't write it."
I don't think we have to do that anymore.
Go to orderspike.com today and get your book just released on Amazon.
Back to Phil. Back to Phil, not the wall. Not the,
Back to Phil.
Yeah, we have another product here. Can we get? Yeah, there's Phil. This is Phil Proctor's memoir, his autobiography. No, I have the copy. I thought I had it.
Yeah, I gave it to you when you were out here visiting.
Yeah. I'm going to use this to read your introduction. So you got to bear with me. I knew you were a talented man. I knew you were successful, but I had no idea the scope and the unpredictable world of show business, the various fields, in all seriousness, that you have conquered and immersed yourself in and really done well with great respect.
It's called survival.
Basically, the young man we're looking at right now, who's going to be turning 80 this year, started as a child actor on a live television show called Uncle Danny Reads the Funnies. This was a high concept show, I imagine, with somebody reading the paper. Let's move forward. Phil received 3 Grammy nominations with the Fireside Theater, 3 Daytime Emmy Awards for voicing Howard DeVille on Rugrats. Can I hear a little Rugrats?
Oh, sure. Howard sounds like this. And we were on the air for 14 years. We were on the air for so long, they had to put gray into our characters' hair when they did the thing all grown up.
Now, he's also shares Academy Awards for his voice work in Spirited Away, Disney and Pixar movies. Now, moving on, the announcer for 3 years on the Big Brother show. Was that boring? Being an announcer?
Oh no, that was wonderful. Previously on Big Brother 3, it was fascinating to be in the place where the people were actually sequestered and living, and to be able to walk around where the cameras were all hidden and watch these people, these real characters coping with this funny situation. And I must say that earlier on in the show, they were very inventive, but as they were kind of running out of ideas later in the show, it got more and more complicated and more, bizarre. And I really enjoyed the simplicity of the interaction between those characters in the earlier shows, and I was very proud to be a part of it.
When you would see the edits on Big Brother, did you get a sense of they took something that wasn't quite as important as it was when it actually occurred and just blew it up and made it more important, or were the edits pretty much in line with what you were observing?
It sounds like our president.
You what?
I said it sounds like our president.
I got it.
Okay. Yeah. Unreality television, we called it.
Jesus. No, we can go on about that for a while. I'm going to move on.
Let's not.
No, I agree. There's enough of that. So I'm just moving on as I roam through your bio.
Yeah, keep it going.
Yeah, let's roll. This is good. Henry Jaglam's first film, A Safe Place. You acted in that with Tuesday Weld, Orson Welles, and Jack Nicholson. Give me one memory of early Nicholson.
Oh, Jack was a real character. What you saw on screen was Jack, his personality. He was very easygoing. One of the things that Jaglam has done with his movies, like it or not, is that he encouraged improvisation based on the scripts that he wrote. And Jack, like everybody else, fit right into the energy of the moment. And he was unpredictable, but you knew he was going to be mischievous, and you knew he was going to be funny, because he wasn't acting so much as he was inhabiting the character and, you know, and expressing himself through it. And it was a joy. It was a joy. Now, Orson Welles, on the other hand, with whom I didn't have any actual scenes, but I got to watch him work on camera. He had his lines written out on a big piece of white, what they call elephant board, which was held off camera by his manservant, who was dressed in like a tuxedo, okay, on location out in Central Park. But Welles was a generous man.
Orson Welles.
Orson Welles. He was a generous man with generous appetites. And I remember after he finished his 4 days or whatever on the shoot, we were all staying at a place called the Essex House, which I called the sex house for obvious reasons. And he used to hold court with students of film who would come sit in the lobby at his feet and ask him questions. He'd talk about his films. And he stayed on for, the rest of the shoot, which was about almost a month, with a correcting selectric typewriter, working on his unfinished film, The Other Side of the Wind, I think it was called.
Yeah, that never was finished, was it?
No, but here's the funny part. When they finally kicked him out, and this is what he used to do on his regular, movie shoots. He would stay as long as he possibly could under being paid by the studio in a hotel somewhere and do his own work. So when he left, he took the typewriter with him. Belonged to the hotel, but I believe he ate it.
By the way, in case you just joined us in, we're talking to Phil Proctor, best known for his brilliant work with Fireside Theater, which leads me to read this. The four-man group listed as one of the 30 greatest acts of all time by Entertainment Weekly. And that in of itself, there you guys, there you are. The PBS special, Weirdly Cool, was a tribute to Firesign, hosted by fans of Firesign like Robin Williams, George Carlin, John Goodman, Chevy Chase. You have fans all over the world. Tell us the Steve Jobs story. I love that one.
Oh, this is interesting. And I don't know, Bill, if when I saw you out here, I had updated this story from something I learned. Okay. When I did voices for A Bug's Life, and Dave Osmond did a featured part in that with working with Phyllis Diller, God bless her. They had a big cast and crew party up in it was like City Hall in San Francisco or something. It's all these things are a blur, but they were fun. And I met Steve Jobs because he had just bought into Pixar to help them develop their computerized animation systems. And he was a tall, imposing guy with the dark beard and long hair. And when I met him, he said, "I'm a big fan of yours." And I said, "Well, everybody's a big fan. I'm only 5'7". But I was very tickled. I said, I'm really moved to hear that because I respect you so much. Well, many years later, the Library of Congress purchased the Fireside Theater archives for $500,000. And our archivist, Taylor Jessen, was going through all of the boxes, David Osmond's boxes of stuff, everything we had in our storage space. And we came across some contact sheets of a shoot, a publicity shoot that had taken place when we were signing records at a record store in Berkeley. And in those pictures, we are standing with this dark-haired guy with the beard and the mustache and the goatee rather. And it was Steve Jobs.
Wow. Wow.
We realized he really was a big fan. And we had met him when he was just beginning his career. And he was inspired, you know, by I Think We're All Bozos on This Bus, which was our 4th album, I believe.
Great album.
Yeah, and it predicted.
Give us the payoff, though, the payoff to the story about Alexa. The payoff to the story. I think this is so interesting.
Okay, I can do that. That was, for those people who don't know the album, it was a predictive album about the power of computers in our lives. And I played a hacker named Clem, because the computer, my name was Clem, but when I hesitated, the computer asked my name. I went, Clem, so I became Clem on the album. And I planted a virus in the direct readout memory, Dr. Memory, which was the mainframe computer that was responsible for running this future fair theme park that would make you feel good about your government. And listen to this. Now, this is my iPhone. Let's see if I can make this happen. This is worker speaking. Hello.
Hello, Clem.
Do you know why that is?
Yeah,
it's an homage from Steve Jobs.
What did he do? Explain to people exactly what Steve did.
What Steve did?
Yeah. Well, how the voice got programmed in there.
Oh, how to get programmed in there. First of all, this is worker speaking hello was the code that I used as a hacker to break into the mainframe computer, because I had been a worker there, okay, a techie, and I had been fired, and so this was my revenge on them. And so he programmed that. This is worker speaking hello as an homage to really to being able to get into the mind of the computer. You know, just like we got into his mind when he was a young man and helped him kind of get inspired about what he was doing.
Well, I'd like to talk a little bit more about Fireside, but I'm getting a message from Jeff Leibowitz that there's some kind of
we have a satellite feed from our news bureau, and if you can give me a minute to hook into the satellite feed, we have a very important a news story about, of course, the president, as all these stories are nowadays. But give me just 1 second, and I think I can hook into our reporter who is on the scene. So you should be able to see
the tribute to the last great resident of the United States on Earth continues from the podium of the Light People's Surrealist Convention, and it appears that our president is now sleeping on Monster Island, or our correspondent is. Right, Eric?
Yes, Walter, what?
Well, perhaps this would be a good time to discuss some of the remarkable security arrangements that are giving the president a blanket of security, allowing him to sleep whenever he wants to. Earlier today, I spoke with the senior agent in charge of his own operations, and we thought for a while that we'd lost the tape, but it appears that it was merely being held up for security precautions.
Sitting here in the studio now,
Sitting with me here in the studio now. And we're going to talk about it with him.
Yes, Mr. Announcer. Everyone is hearing so much now about espionage agents and saboteurs so much now, it's hard to think that just a few years ago, no one even knew that saboteurs had agents.
Yes. Perhaps you could tell us some of the violations handled by the squad, which may not be generally known to the public or the general, such as the White Trash Traffic Act and the National Migratory Sponge Theft Act.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, for example, you, Mr. Announcer, are right now violating the concealed radio statute. Yes, by not broadcasting all the call letters of this radio station all the time, you could be jeopardizing the security of this area and my family and friends within its perimeters.
Well, gosh, Mr. Bronx, this is as exciting and serious as if it were real.
Oh, of course, this is real, and you'll be convicted and sent to radio prison.
All right, Phil, tell us, Phil Proctor, Fireside Theater. Thank you. Tell us there's a quick background of what was going on there, where that was shot, and so forth.
All right, that was the great late Phil Austin.
Yeah.
Fireside Theater is Phil Austin, Peter Bergman, David Osman, myself. And this was a benefit. This was a film we made to raise money for KPFK, listener-supported radio, which is where the Fireside Theater started, on a show called Radio Free Eyes that Peter Bergman had created. And Peter and I met at Yale, as you pointed out. And this, we called it the National Surrealist Light People's Party, and it was the introduction of George Papoon for president, with George Tyrebiter as his vice president. He had enfranchised all the insects, animals, and one-celled organisms. So obviously, if somebody walked into the voting booth with a cold, he immediately got 1.5 million votes. You see, unfortunately, he wasn't recognized as president because he said, "If elected, I will not serve." All right. And anyway, so we had this crazy convention idea, and it was filmed by a fellow named Steve Gilmore for us, and to raise money for KPFK, and it was released as a crazy film called National Surrealist Martian Space Party. That's right, the Martian Space Party, because one of the themes was we were going to send the president to Mars, which is not a bad idea.
Actually, yeah. Anyway, something I must talk to you about. And that is the connection, seriously, between marijuana, Fireside Theater, and the creative process. Because just as putting Clearasil on in 8th grade for pimples is a rite of passage, getting high and listening to your albums in the early 70s was another rite of passage. So look, Bing Crosby, Louis Armstrong, Dizzy Gillespie, Lorne Michaels have all extolled the virtues of creative power of pot. Tell us, for the record, how involved was marijuana in the creation process with the Fireside Theater?
It was very important in the writing sessions and in the listening sessions, not in the performances.
Right.
You can't, your timing would be thrown off by ingestion of any drugs except for Clorox, which would clean your system out and make you ready to, really give your best performance ever. But basically, we would sit around a table at one of our houses, and we had a bottle of El Presidente brandy and some good grass that one of us had scored. And those days, it wasn't too difficult to do that. And it was part of a social movement. It was part of our expression of independence from the man and independence from the system, independence from the old white alcoholics who were running the country. We were the new young white potheads who envisioned possibly changing the system for the better. Okay, and it was inspirational for us because there were 4 guys, 4 strong egos, 4 fire signs, Leo, 2 Sagittarians and Aries, sitting around a table, writing anything we wanted for what we knew would be records under Columbia record contract that we could then go in and record. And we had one special thing about our contract. There was a fellow who was one of the suits at CBS. And after we did our first album, Waiting for the Electrician or Someone Like Him, our future was kind of dicey because we hadn't reached our audience yet. And the heads of Columbia said, who are these people? What is this album? And this one fellow, John, I can't remember his last name right now, stood up. He held up the album in his hand at a meeting. He said, "These guys are geniuses. They've created a whole new form of long-form comedy, and I'm going to sign them under a spoken arts contract." Now, what did that mean? It meant we got in exchange for a reduced royalty. We had unlimited studio time, free.
Wow.
And that was the secret to our success.
I want to journey back in time, keep the marijuana references in there. when you were on Midday back in 1976, Midday Live on my show.
Yeah.
You were on with Mr. Bergman. The two of you, I think you were quoting a gig at the bottom line. But anyway, I had this idea. We'll do a thing outside with Captain Haggerty, right?
Yep.
Captain Haggerty and his marijuana sniffing dogs. So I was able to find it on BillBoggsTV. Let's go back to 76. And
Oh, no. Oh, good.
You got it. Yep.
Hi, Sandy. How are you? Sandy, are you involved in the training of the dogs, or do you just handle them after the man does the training?
No, I've been doing the training for about 2 years now.
Okay. Can you give us an example of how a dog, where does he work? Like at airports when you would have people smuggling
police
dope in?
departments, sure, bringing bigger shipments in, even smaller quantities. They'll pick up small loads. They'll pick up a reefer, a roach, just about anything.
Well, we have
roaches all over this town.
Yeah,
I got a dog that sniffs out the roaches in my apartment. He's busy all day. Yeah.
It's a 24-hour day job.
Yeah.
These young gentlemen are Phil Proctor and Peter Bergman from Fireside Theater.
Oh, we are. How do you do? Yes,
sure. How do you do, Bill? Nice to see you. Nice to see you.
Fireside Theater.
Fireside.
2 of your albums.
You do?
You do?
Yeah.
Well, we have 12.
Well, I only have 2.
We'll have to set
10.
you up.
Why don't we use these fellas? Use these fellas in the experiment. Have you ever,
No. We don't smoke dope. We don't.
Where's the grass? There's no grass in New York. Don't you know that's a problem?
Where's the grass?
We don't use marijuana. Come on now.
we believe that.
Where's the grass? Where's the grass?
Oh, look, they're ripping his purse. They must have found something.
Where's the grass? Well, bad dogs.
Now, will the dogs attack these guys, or will they just sniff out the grass?
Well, they principally sniff out the.
If you train these dogs to sniff out old socks, I could use them with a dog that finds the roaches.
All right. Another unpaid appearance on one of my shows. We're going to take a break for a commercial, and I'm changing the format on the commercials again. By the way, give me a quick reaction. I know you've read part of the book, right?
Yeah, well, as I told you earlier, I'm so glad that Spike was not put down in the book, because I couldn't put down the book myself. It is so jam-packed with satire, especially from somebody who's been in show business like I have, that every chapter is a mini series. You know what I mean?
Well, thank you, Phil.
It's very visual, very funny. I highly recommend it.
Bob, we're hoping to get a deal.
I hope it does.
You do the voice. Meanwhile, for The Adventures of Spike the Wonder Dog, as told to Bill Boggs, which is available anywhere books are sold, here is a live commercial from the one and only Lady Jane. There you are, baby.
Yay!
Move right in.
Move right in. Okay.
That's right.
Okay, getting closer.
There you are.
All right. So these are some of the blurbs, the endorsements that.
Well, yes, Jane.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
They're
Okay.
blurbs and endorsements.
Endorsements. So from Dan's Papers, which is based in East Hampton, but distributed throughout all the Hamptons, all of Long Island,
That's
and
right.
Manhattan, Dan's Papers wrote, Bill Boggs has twisted all of his knowledge and television experience together into a new novel satirizing the industry he knows so well. The result is a hilarious, madcap adventure that pulls no punches in observing human inauthenticity and lampooning the industry that made him. Boggs tapped into something magical.
Thank you.
Big laughs at a time when America needs them.
Well, that's the truth. Thanks, Jane.
Next, Book Steve Reviews wrote, "This is funny, all caps funny. It's not in any way being mean-spirited, just unashamedly and unabashedly non-politically correct. Excitement, intrigue, mystery, romance, and most of all, humor. I literally laughed out loud at this book more than any book in recent memory." Just a couple more. Ed Kalegi, host of The Weekend with Ed Kalegi, a syndicated radio program, said, "This is laugh out loud, smart, funny satire." And Downtown with Rich Kimball, another syndicated radio show, said, Bill, such a brilliant book.
Such a brilliant book.
Funniest book I have read in the, did I make it sound too Jewish?
Such a brilliant book. Such a brilliant book.
I'm taking on the Jewish thing here. Funniest book I've read in a long time. Made me laugh out loud. Spike is a tremendous character. I couldn't put it down.
Jane, not since Ed McMahon was doing those live Budweiser commercials have we seen such great live talent doing commercials. Thank you, Jane.
My pleasure.
I appreciate that. Hey, Phil, how would you, there's Bob Merrill. Phil, how would you have to change Fireside Theater humor in 2020, Phil Proctor, because of political correctness with regard to, not politics, but with regard to humor and offending people?
Okay, I'm going to talk about that, but first I want to do this. This is my latest book, co-authored by Samuel Joseph, and it's called, as you can see, What to Say to Your Crazy Right-Wing Uncle, Talking Points for Liberals. And it's, of course, profusely illustrated with cartoons and things.
That's good.
Okay, but so like you, satire lives. Okay, satire lives. It's been an important part of my life since the beginning. I was inspired by Bob and Ray. I was inspired by Ernie Kovacs, among others. Robert Benchley as a writer. I loved surrealism, the Goon shows, and I loved satire of society. What the Fireside Theater was doing. And remember, our career started in like 1965 and lasted till 1995, something like, no, to 2005, actually. A long and impressive career. We were satirizing the society that existed at the time. And remember, our goal was liberation from the brainwashing of the thought styles of the people that the society we grew up in, the government we grew up under. And so a lot of the stuff that we did was very, very daring. For instance, we did a thing called the American Pageant in How Can You Be in Two Places at Once When You're Not Anywhere at All, which is also known as the Marx-Lenin album, because we got Groucho Marx and John Lennon to allow us to use their photos, as Soviet.
I saw the artwork in the book.
Right at the front. And in that, pardon me? What'd you say?
I have a question when I get a moment, because I love.
Okay, I'll finish it, and then you can. And so in that piece, the American Pageant, we used every derogatory name for every minority that was being used in society at that time as a jolly old song that was celebrating, that's America, buddy. And so it's all about the context of things. Right. Yeah. We would never do what we did there.
Let's go to Bob for his question.
Yeah, Bob.
Bob Merrill, welcome back, Legends radio personality.
Well, first, thank you, Bill. First of all, Phil, I love the reference to Bob and Ray, because I go back and listen to them on YouTube, old radio broadcasts. I used to listen to them live when they were on the radio live on WOR.
Me too.
But you were about the same. I remember getting all your albums. It was about the same time as Cheech and Chong. Weren't you kind of the same vintage of Cheech and Chong?
Yeah, we were, and we toured. We got to know Cheech and Chong on tour, and of course they were anti-authoritarian. That was their pitch. They gave. We went to several of their concerts. They gave the freedom to the young people who were coming to see them to stand up to their teachers if they felt that something was unjust, right? And they made fun of police. They made fun of, because they were busting kids for marijuana and things like that. They basically wanted to empower young people to take more control of their own lives. That was the message of the Fireside Theater as well. So we consider them to be our, friends.
What kind of, I'm sorry, Bill.
No, we're going to pop back.
Sell a lot of records, actually? Like, I would imagine everybody I knew had your records.
Yeah, we did. The funny thing is that at the time that we were selling records, they didn't track them the way they do now. We probably would have gotten some platinum records to hang up on our walls and things like that. But also, because our royalties were reduced, we did fine. We did fine. But we also had to stop occasionally because we weren't making enough dough, and we had a writing period, so it was a hippie oriented career in many ways. But yes, we sold a crap load of records over our career, and we're still doing so. If you go to our website, firesigntheater.com, you can still get a lot of our stuff on CDs and as downloads. We have a new series of records coming out called Dope Humor of the 70s.
That's a good title. I want to go to both Bob and Jeff with a question that will bring it back to you. So, Bob Merrill, when you were essentially 30 years ago, who was your all-time favorite, Fireside Theater aside, favorite comedy team?
Well, I just said Bob and Ray, without a doubt.
Right. Now,
you know,
Jeff Liebel,
and why is Miller and Mary, and even the corny ones like Marty Allen and Rossi. I love those guys. And Burns and Schreiber. You remember Burns with the taxi cab routine? Huh?
Right.
What? Huh?
What? And you also had Nichols and May.
Of course.
Rowan and Martin. How about you, Jeff? As you evolved in show business, you've been a fan of the business all your life, Jeff. Your favorite comedy team?
Well, I don't do favorites. I enjoy the. Yeah, I like the variety. I like the changing of things. So, but comedy is important to me because it's based on truth, and that's really what is important. And actually, when Phil spoke a couple of years ago at the Library of Congress, he said this that I'd like to share with you, which I think is still very prescient and important.
But remember also, one of the main messages that we tried to deliver in the many years that we created comedy in our own particular way was that you're responsible for everything. You know, the tomb of the unregistered voter is a classic example of that. You know, we are responsible in many ways for the situations that we create in our society and in our lives. But the other side of that message is kind of like, but don't get too emotionally or spiritually involved in it, because much of it is really at the bottom line an illusion. And we always like to reveal the illusion of things that we were all getting emotionally involved in so people could sell us things, people could scare us into thinking certain ways, voting certain ways, acting certain ways. So you have to maintain your own inner perspective. And that was, I always felt, one of the main messages of the Fireside Theater, which is, I'm responsible for my life, and I'm going to keep it that way.
Absolutely.
So actually what I was looking for is a reaction, a short, this is an analytical question about show business, quick answer from everybody here. So if you go back to, I remember Laurel and Hardy, Abbott and Costello, Martin and Lewis, obviously, then we mentioned Rowan and Martin, and a lot of different comedy teams. Why is there, in your opinion, no existing comedy team today in business? There's no two-man duo. The closest thing I was thinking would be Weekend Update, you know, once a week on Saturday Night Live, and those guys don't really work together. So I'll start with, why do you think, Bob? Why do you think there's no?
Well, first of all, the variety shows are not as prevalent. I mean, you had Sullivan Show, you had the Hollywood Palace, you had all of those shows. Actually, I was thinking of a guy who was so unheralded anymore, and you can hardly find anything on YouTube. He wasn't a comedy team, but Jackie Vernon. You remember Jackie Vernon?
Yeah.
With the fake slideshow, with the click, and he would click. Yeah. And Sid Sakowitz was one of his characters. Sid Sakowitz, I think, he was incredible.
You know, actually, would be a good Trap Live show would just to go into a whole bunch of clips and just do a retrospective of comedians people have forgotten, keep the clips relatively tight. Jeff, how about you? Any feeling on why you can't, it's like you can't name the heavyweight champion of the world much anymore, and you can't name any comedy team because they're really not working?
Well, I think that Al Franken actually said it when he said that when we entered the 80s, we entered the me generation. And I think things are no longer about cooperation. They're no longer about working together. They're about me. And it's hard to become some part of a group nowadays when everything is so individual centric. And that might be the reason why there are no great comedy teams now. There are a lot of comics and comic actors that work together especially well, but they're not particularly a comic team like
Yeah.
the Stillers and Mirrors and Martin and Allen, George Burns and Gracie Allen and things like
Yeah.
that.
And here's Phil. Phil,
Yeah. I also want to add to that list Mac and Jamie. Jamie Alcroft, who is a partner of mine doing Boomers on a Bench, which you can see on Facebook. And they had a terrific success. They were on the Carson show more than anybody else. But like Proctor and Bergman couldn't get on the Carson show because it was really, really hard for duos to get that kind of national exposure, right? And of course, the Fireside Theater couldn't. You know, you were gracious and allowed us a forum to talk and be silly and perform, but it was a special, we had to go to special places to do it.
Yeah, part of it is the fact that it's so conceptual. If you look, for example, at the brilliance of Mike Nichols and Elaine May, who were really seen as brilliant performers at the time,
Great.
and you look at their clips, you see that each thing they're doing is based on a certain conceptual situation, that you have to accept that premise in order to really dig what they're doing. And it's both hip and dated at the same time, if you look at it now, in my opinion.
Phil, I have a question. I have an album of Proctor and Bergman. So what, did you guys like break up like the Beatles for a minute there and like splintered off? Is that what happened?
Yeah, what happened was, and this will all be explained in our download, Dope Humor of the 70s, because there's going to be a lot of writing about this that you can also download. And basically what happened was that at a certain point, Dave and Phil, David Osman and Phil Austin, wanted to do more studio albums. And Peter and I thought, well, we're really getting out of touch because we would tour, but Phil Austin didn't like to fly. So our tours were necessarily designed so that Peter and I could fly in, start promoting, and Phil Austin and his lovely wife, Una, and their 4 or 5 dogs would catch up with us in their Volkswagen bus, right, for the rehearsal of the performance. And as a result, it was much more difficult for us to establish ourselves as a group. But now, what was the other point of your question, which I've lost?
No, I was like Beatles, like a breakup.
Yeah. So as I said, they wanted to do studio albums. And Peter, I said, no, we got to go out and touch our audience. We got to find out what's going on in society. So we said, you guys do the album, and then we'll, participate as best we can. But we're going to create Proctor and Bergman. We're going to create short form comedy bits, and we're going to go out and see if we can't attract a larger audience to Fireside Theater. And that's what we did. And we had the touring years of Proctor and Bergman, which you can read about Bear Manor Press. I helped put together with Peter several books about our experiences and our writing. We helped to create a movie called Americathon with Neil Israel, which has become a cult favorite. The only movies that Fireside wrote was Zachariah, and that's also a cult favorite for different reasons. But basically, we were successful. And so we would come back and work with the Firesign. Phil Austin did a wonderful album called Rotor Maidens from Outer Space. We did some work on that as well. But it wasn't until my wife and I, Melinda Peterson, got married up in Ojai that the whole group came together again to celebrate our marriage. And there was a picture taken of all of us with our arms around one another. And somebody named Charlie Mowat, a dear friend of mine, took a picture of us from behind.
Yeah.
And I printed that picture up and I sent it to everybody and I said, Firesign's back. And do you know, that was the catalyst to get us writing again. And we signed a contract. There it is.
There's the picture right there.
Yeah. We signed a contract with Rhino Records. And those are the 3 albums that we made. The Bride of Firesign and Welcome to Billville or something like that. And Boom Dot Bust, okay, which are going to be released as a download in Dope Homer in the 70s.
Great. Well, let me go back both to Bob and Jeff with as we're headed to the end of the show here. Jeff, something you would like to add? Question? I'm enjoying our 4-way conversation.
Well, the other thing that I think that doesn't get mentioned a lot about Fireside Theater is that they were the catalyst for things like Saturday Night Live's group and troupe, if you will. All of that came out of the very first, I think, long form comedy that Firesign invented.
We did.
So in a way, all of current comedy, other than perhaps stand-up, owes itself to Firesign Theater.
Bob Merrill, final question?
I do have a question. Did you guys consider yourself improv necessarily, because you would write a lot of the material? Would you, on the album, would you improvise and then do a retake? If something was funny, it worked, no, throw it out?
Very good question, and you're absolutely right. We would agonize over the writing of these pieces. 4 guys, often with different approaches to the comedy and the ideas. And these writing sessions would become very heated sometimes, and we maybe would not even resolve a question until the next session as to where the album was going next. But we did a couple of things. We used to perform our albums in front of a live audience before we went into the studio at a place called the Ash Grove, okay, which is now has been the Improv for decades and decades. And so we got an idea from the audience responses of what was working and what wasn't working. Then we take the scripts piece by piece. Remember, we take maybe the beginning of the album, we could do it in order, into the studio, start laying it down, and then we would change it in terms of the instincts of the time. We would improvise on what it was we were doing, just out of sheer instinct, because we'd listen back to what we just laid down, and we went, wait a minute, what if I say this, there, and that? So, and then of course we'd overdub. Overdubbing über alles. We could, when we started, we could only overdub like 10 tracks, and we'd have to, what they call ping pong, put tracks together to make funny things that people could listen to again when they were listening to the album. Did you get that, what they said? She's no fun, she fell right over. Do you like horses? And other funny stuff. And eventually, the tapes got bigger and bigger and bigger until there were 100 tracks that we could play with. And then it disappeared. Everything became digital. Everything, the studio as we knew it, was in your pocket. And it changed everything. That's when we worked with the great Fred Jones in doing some digital albums.
But all 3 of you, I don't, but all 3 of you have studios in your homes. Jeff Leibowitz is in yours right now. You have one. Bob Merrill, you just put one together for your radio show, right? One of the things that I always thought was so wonderful about the Firesign recordings, which to me is like the filet mignon of the career, a lot beyond the movies and the stage work, was the layered sound, and that you could listen to it several times. You wanted to go back and hear exactly the same thing because you'd hear different things. And that's much different than, say, listening to the albums of, say, Bob Newhart or Bill Cosby or Steve Martin at the time, which were wonderful spoken word albums. But
yes, it's true. It's true. And also, if there were different people listening with you, you would hear different things. That to me has been always the most amazing thing. That maybe it's another proof of telepathy. I don't know, or lethargy. I don't know. But it's true that I would even hear things in some of the layered puns that we had created with wordplay that I hadn't heard before, because number one, time had passed. And suddenly something that we were predicting was now true, or there was somebody that we were listening with who knew something that I didn't know. It was astonishing. It still is, frankly.
Yeah, and then another one, just as the microphone, the invention of the microphone helped Bing Crosby and Frank Sinatra, FM radio really helped Fireside Theater.
Let's
go around one more time with any final thoughts, and then I've taken a lot of your time today on Trap Live, but Bob, any final thought or question?
I have a trivia question for you, comedically. What was the comedian Marty Allen's catchphrase?
Hello there.
Ah,
hello there. That's
Hello
right.
there.
Hello there.
Jeff, all right, so Bob, thank you very much for being with us today. Remind everyone, give us the quick summary of what you're doing 2 hours every night, Monday through Friday on Legends
I'm
Radio.
hosting Legends After Dark on WLML Radio, where legendary music lives. I love that bit that we played about the FCC. If you don't broadcast your call letters all the time, you will be put in radio police will come and put you in
Radio prison.
That's exactly what I'm doing. And Bill, all I can say is that I know now what you went through all those years, the stress and excitement of the show. We got to do the show, and what's going to be on the show, and I got to make the show happen. It's a lot of fun. I'm loving it, being part of the Legends family. Jill and Rich, you talk about comedy teams. They're so great in the morning. Well, they're married. They work off of each other, and they're great musicians, and they're funny people. And you've got Walt Pinto then, and Lorna in the afternoon. Of course, Dick Robinson himself is the man, the legend. He's a riot. You got to have him on at some point.
No, I have special plans for Dick Robinson. So anyway, Bob, thank you.
And Mike McGann. I got to mention Mike McGann.
Oh, that's right. Sure.
Tune in. I got to do the show.
2 hours a night. Yeah, you're on, man. Get to it. You're on in a couple minutes.
And Bill, if you're asking what I do for like 2 hours a day, almost every day I'll work on Planet Proctor. Okay? And Planet Proctor, right?
Yeah.
If you go to planetproctor.com, you can sign up for it. It's free. I do it whenever I want to, sometimes 3 a month these days, sometimes only 1 a month.
We got one last week.
Pardon me? Yeah, but they're beautifully, beautifully graphically designed by my friend Chris Gross. So take a look, go to the website, planetproctor.com. Take a look, and if you're interested, because it gives me a chance to talk about politics, to talk, to do funny jokes, to do funny quotes, and to thank people, and to write tributes to people. Because one of the horrible things about living to almost 80 is that I'm constantly losing dear professional and personal friends. Fred Willard, just most recently. You know, friends.
Yeah,
long histories of performing and loving them. Yes, nice, Bob.
So, Phil, this is your book. I loved it. Where's my fortune cookie? And I say I loved it. I was so enthralled. I would love to just talk an hour, just throw names at you of people you've gone through your life. We'll do that on another time. Bob Merrill.
By the way, it's co-authored by Brad Stryper, I have to say, who impelled me to start talking about my life. So thank you, Brad.
Thank you, Phil. A pleasure to be with you.
Always fun.
We've done it. Bob Merrill, we've done it. Jeff,
we have.
Thank you. I want to thank
Jeff
for getting out that. Thank Bob Merrill, noodling at the piano, and of course, what more can I say? There she is. Lena.
Hi, Jay.
Hi, Bob. Good to see
you. Are we officially off the air?
We are not.
Words now?
Before we do that, we have one final word from our sponsor.
Oh, that's important.
Leslie Bennett, author of Last Girl Before Freeway, The Life, Loves, Losses, and Liberation of Joan Rivers, warns us that, like Joan Rivers, the adventures of Spike the Wonder Dog is definitely not safe for snowflakes. But fans of transgressive humor, like Family Guy or Dave Chappelle, will appreciate Spike's wild tales, which are raunchy, hilarious, and spectacularly politically incorrect. Bill Boggs has the manners of a gentleman, as does Spike, so they'll both understand if you take offense. Rivers would have just told you to go fuck yourself.
I thank you, everybody. This has been a pleasure. On to a safe weekend.
Bill, there's one more thing. You are going to be interviewed by me on a new show called Phil and Ted's Sexy Boomer Show. Okay? And I can hardly wait. We're setting it up with Jeff Abraham, our wonderful publicist, and your wonderful publicist right now.
And I've got to add one thing. You can download the app, the Legends Radio app on the App Store. Listen anywhere in the world or go on legendsradio.com.
Cool. Jeff?
And on that, we will say goodbye to our wonderful viewers and listeners and see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.